The current debate over reversing pit bull bans in Colorado keeps coming back to the story of a 10-year-old boy from Aurora, a boy badly mauled by a pit bull. He became the face of Colorado's pit bull bans. That was a dozen years ago. Surely he deserves some voice in today's debate. Our Steve Steger caught up with him.
A 10-year-old boy mauled by his own dogs while neighbors fight desperately to save his life.
When they found 10-year-old Greg Jones in the backyard, they say the animals had mauled his arms, his legs.
My name is Greg Jones. Everybody calls me Nemo because of my one arm. I have a lucky fin.
Apparently the house was locked, so he jumped the fence to go in the back.
The boy dog, Pepper, he recognized me as a threat.
Doctors at the Medical Center of Aurora stabilized the child.
I think the main thing I learned from that day is to keep smiling and I don't know why I learned that.
That day has left marks on Nemo Jones that people have noticed.
People always ask me what happened, and they were like, oh, you're that boy. You're the boy that got the pit bulls banned.
Ban of new pit bulls in the city.
He became the scapegoat for a pit bull ban in Aurora, passed weeks before his incident.
After my incident, no one ever came to talk to me about it, asked me about my opinion about it, nothing until this past month.
That's when a reporter from the Aurora Sentinel finally asked the question he's been waiting to answer for years.
So I'm not blaming the pit bull at all. I guess the main thing I blame for that is probably myself.
He says he shouldn't have jumped into that yard like he did that day. And he says something else that surprises people.
I love pits. I want them to be legal again so everyone can be happy. Hi, baby.
The man, once known as the boy from Aurora, attacked by pit bulls, owns one.
This is my baby Hennessy. So she's about 3 months old.
A service dog to help with the PTSD from that day.
Lately I've been just feeling down, so she brought me happiness.
Now, that 10-year-old boy is 22 and a tattoo artist, something that helps him forget that day.
It's bringing me peace every time I'm drawing on someone. It feels like I'm leaving a mark for myself, like my own little legacy. Instead of me being the kid that everyone knows I got tattooed when I was 10 years old, now would know me as a tattoo artist, and I do really good for myself.
So Nemo had a tough time becoming a tattoo artist because a lot of other artists said he couldn't do it with one arm. He pushed through that, and he's doing it today. He told me today he'd like to be part of that effort to rethink pit bull bans because he says it's all in the way that the dogs are trained.
Yeah, if nothing else, nobody should be defined by the worst thing that ever happens to him, you know?
Yeah,
right.
And now he has so many great things happening for him. He wants to get that out there.
Thank you, Steve.
Our next questions are all about the primary elections, which are now open to unaffiliated voters. It appears there's some confusion. Kevin on Facebook asks, if we are an unaffiliated voter, we must pick a side? No, Kevin, you are welcome to sit out the primary. Susan emails, what if a voter wants to vote for a Republican for governor and a Democrat for a local office? Can't do it in the primary, Susan. Must pick one ballot or the other. California does have a system like you describe. Terry writes, if I return a ballot, will I then be registered as affiliated with that party? No, but your primary party choice will be public record, just like your party affiliation. Jody says, how do we hear about independent candidates for governor? If you mean third-party candidates, Next hosted the Unity Party candidate who has the third line on the ballot. We asked Bill Hammonds about his proposal to conquer Mexico for a path to the sea.
Hey, you don't hear the other candidates talking about that, conquering Mexico, path to the sea. It's kind of innovative. Teachers supporting Cary Kennedy for governor are attacking her fellow Democrats in the race. And Kennedy doubled down on their TV ad in our debate this week. She's sticking to a claim that we have now researched in detail and can tell you is false. Politics guy Brandon Ritteman has our truth test.
Well, there's no two ways about it. This is an attack ad, complete with distorted, unflattering photos of Kennedy's opponents. It's not an ad from Kennedy's official campaign, but rather from a group of her supporters called Teachers for Kennedy. Let's check the attacks.
Jared Polis supported a voucher program to take money out of public schools. And Mike Johnston, he pushed conservative anti-teacher laws that experts say hurt students.
Both of those claims are based in true facts, but they ignore a lot of important context. Polis has cast votes against vouchers. Some teacher groups supported Johnston's bill. This ad oversimplifies both issues to make both candidates sound as bad as possible against that bed of ominous music. If you think that counts as a smear, you should know that Kennedy signed a clean campaign pledge which covers this sort of thing. Quote, "I will encourage my supporters to refrain from engaging in personal attacks or smears against the other Democrats in this primary race." Well, that's not how she handled it when we asked about it in the debate. She said she doesn't like the tactics, but
we have to respect their right to communicate with voters.
It's true, she can't force this group to stop running the ad on her behalf, but we pointed out, and so did some of the candidates, that she is perfectly free to ask this group to knock it off if she doesn't like their ad.
You can talk right there to the camera and say, take down this ad.
As you well know, even saying that violates campaign finance laws in Colorado. It would violate campaign finance laws to say that.
That's just false. State election officials told us there's nothing to stop a candidate from criticizing an ad like this or asking it to be pulled down. State campaign finance laws do ban candidates from telling a group like this one to spend money, but the rules also protect the candidate's right to say whatever they want in public. It only becomes coordination, according to the rule, if the candidate gives the group, quote, non-public information to guide what they do. The Kennedy campaign says their lawyer is giving them more conservative advice than that to avoid a challenge on this, but when we asked them to show an example of somebody ever getting in trouble in Colorado for criticizing an ad or asking it to be pulled down, they sent us none. It's also worth pointing out that the only reason this matters is to protect the ability of a group like Teachers for Kennedy to collect unlimited donations. The biggest check you're allowed to write a candidate for governor is $1,150, but you can cut a group like Teachers for Kennedy as big a check as you want, as long as they don't coordinate with her about the ads they run, which is how it raised $2 million from only 4 donors. Bottom line, this ad isn't outright false, but it is negative and ignores some important context. And Kennedy made a false claim about campaign finance laws to justify how she's handling it. With your truth test, I'm Brandon Rittiman.
Much of the Cherry Creek Trail is made to flood. It's designed that way so the rest of Denver doesn't. But one particular stretch keeps getting washed out by floodwaters. It's right near the Cherry Creek Mall. So it's been closed since April. And it will be for the foreseeable future as the city brings in environmental consultants to figure out how to rework 50 feet of the trail. An alternate trail on the other side of the creek is open for the time being.
If I have any regrets, it would be that I had caused the division or the Civil Rights Commission any heartache or any trouble.
That is the former Colorado Civil Rights Commissioner who was publicly called out by the United States Supreme Court this week. She is speaking with our Marshall Zellinger. The justices cited Dianne Rice's hostility to a cake baker's religious beliefs when the Supreme Court sided with him and decided against making what could have been a landmark anti-discrimination ruling.
I still think he should have made the cake, but I understand his faith and why he did it.
Dianne Rice sat on the Colorado Civil Rights Commission when it decided Baker Jack Phillips violated the state's public accommodation law when he refused to make a same-sex wedding cake. Her words were called out in the Supreme Court's decision this week when the High Court said the commission was hostile toward the religious beliefs of Phillips.
The commissioner even went so far as to compare Phillips' invocation of his sincerely held religious beliefs to defenses of slavery and the Holocaust. I think that's a mischaracterization. What I said was that to use religion to discriminate is wrong and despicable.
Because the Supreme Court focused on those words, essentially saying the commission never really gave Phillips a fair shot, the justices never ruled if Phillips was right or wrong, thus not setting a precedent for other cases.
If it were all to do again, I think sometimes I say, maybe I shouldn't have just kept my mouth shut and not said what I believe. But that would be really hard for me to do, too.
Don't you think some of the LGBTQ community might think that your words are what kept the Supreme Court from making what could have been a landmark decision?
that landmark decision could have been against people's rights, too.
For Next, I'm Marshall Zellinger.
Rice is no longer on the Civil Rights Commission. Her term ended about a year after the cake shop decision. She's an unaffiliated voter. She was first appointed to the commission by Democratic Governor Bill Ritter.
Like your uncle who wears a turtleneck and a fanny pack, we are stuck in the 90s and aren't leaving soon. An unusually named golf course in northern Colorado calls for the special investigative skills of one particular reporter.
The Mad Russian Golf Course.
And 74 years after D-Day, I would like to tell you about a young man from Denver who went in before they stormed the beaches. That's next.
The most Colorado thing we saw today is two friends meeting for the first time. Dog's name is Reggie. We didn't catch the deer's name. It came up to Allison Mickens' kitchen window during breakfast. She lives near Horsetooth Reservoir. Best caption we saw for this on our Facebook page today was from Penny Heed. What up, dog? Nothing, dear.
Our midsummer weather pattern continues in late spring, and even with the high cloud deck coming in tonight, not cutting the heat very much. As a matter of fact, it's triggering some strong, if not severe, thunderstorms on the far northeastern plains. And our high today at 95 degrees, again, tying a record for the second time this week. Average high this time of year is 78. Storms tracking from the southwest toward the northeast into a severe thunderstorm watch area that will extend out past midnight. Large hail, damaging wind, and lightning, the biggest threat. High pressure bends a little bit in the front that moved into northern Colorado today that we thought might bring a little bit of a cooling trend. Well, that is out of here tomorrow. Heat back on. Isolated storms tonight will form a line east of Sterling and Ray and go late into the night into western Nebraska and Kansas. Tomorrow, a little bit drier and still plenty warm with lots of sunshine. Temperatures back in the 90s again. Our low near 60. Skies will clear out in the city, but those storms go late east of Akron and Sterling. Tomorrow's high 93. We go 90 to 95 right into the weekend. Slight chance of a thunderstorm on Saturday and a bit of a cooling trend. 80s back in the forecast on Monday and Tuesday. Allergy sufferers having a tough time today with the trees, the weeds, and the grass, which are all running moderate to high, Kyle.
Kathy, thanks. As American troops fought their way ashore on D-Day 74 years ago today, more than 10,000 U.S. Army paratroopers were dropping from the sky behind Nazi lines. Men like Alfred Hurtado of Commerce City, a decorated and humble veteran who died on Sunday at the age of 95.
Alfred Hurtado jumped again and again, each time not knowing if he would ever go home.
He was among the very few who had 4 combat jumps.
Italy, Belgium, D-Day in Normandy.
He went in as a pathfinder.
Hurtado's friend Bob Barnett served in the 82nd Airborne in a different era.
Pathfinders go in first and mark drop zones. They're the first people in, and he was selected for that for D-Day.
Home for Hurtado was Denver, where he grew up, where he had a young wife and child waiting for him during the war.
They endured long-term extended deployment, we would call it today. They just never got to go home until it was over.
He survived D-Day and the Battle of the Bulge, wounded several times, but able to return to Denver to build a family and a business. He ran Al's Trucking for 50 years. Recognition for his heroism came later in life. But that was not what mattered to Al Hurtado. He defined his life through his deep Christian faith and his love of his large family. 9 kids, 30 great-grandkids, 31 great-great-grandkids. They said today that he was their hero, who's gone home at the age of 95. Does sending Anastasia Bolton to a place called the Mad Russian count as collusion?
He was kind of crazy mad.
The mystery of the Wash Park Pit has been solved at last, and it's a sign that your picnic might get awkward. Next.
I wouldn't describe our friend and colleague Anastasia Bolton as a mad Russian. Now, occasionally she does use some salty language, but we still thought she was best suited to uncover why more than one thing in Milliken, Colorado, of all places, bears the Mad Russian name.
Blame it on the Russians, the Mad Russians.
This is the Mad Russian golf course.
God. What are Russians like? Are they all mad?
No, Ted was one of a kind.
Bob Ehrlich bought the place from Ted Blem, a son of a Russian immigrant. Was he angry mad? Was he crazy mad?
He was kind of crazy mad. Ted was a real hard-working, scrappy, kind of a bar brawler.
Ted wasn't allowed to join the Greeley Country Club, so in the 70s, he built his own, the Jackrabbit Trail Golf Course.
He had a tremendous ego, and he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build something bigger and better than what you have here at the Greeley Country Club.
After Ted fell on hard times, Bob took over in the late 80s and renamed it in Ted's honor.
Mad Russian. He was just kind of known as the Mad Russian.
So he was okay with that?
Yeah, he was okay with it. In fact, I think kind of liked it.
Ted wanted the course to reflect his personality, to be as tough as he was.
That's why they call it the Mad Russian. The ball can go madly any direction.
A badge of honor for us, Russians. I could sort of see where he's coming from. In my previous reporting job in Birmingham, they called me the Mad Russian. I sort of liked it, because it's true. С любовью из Milliken. Анастасия Болтон, 9 канал, для Next.
Spasibo, Anastasia. The most talked about story on Next, last week and this, is the mystery of the brick-lined pit in a backyard near Wash Park in Denver. Well, tonight, we can finally bury the pit story. The mystery's been solved. The pit boss, Molly Crack, the woman who found it, summoned 2 archaeologists out to her house, and they are certain the pit was a cistern used to collect rainwater. Was your guess right? There were so many guesses. This is fantastic news for our Steve Steger, who climbed down into the pit right before somebody told him that it might have been a sewer or outhouse. With the mystery solved, Molly plans to fill in the pit. Before she does, though, she's going to put in a time capsule so the next person who uncovers it also has a great story to tell. There goes Steve into the pit. A sign at a state park could create some confusing and awkward situations. That's next. It is a sign that people might be showing up partially clothed for your picnic at Jackson Lake State Park north of Wiggins. Next viewer, David Kornsky, saw the sign and he noted the confusion. Got to look carefully there. Swim beach? No, that's a picnic table. Picnic area? Nope, that's somebody swimming. And they're all going in the same area, too. If you see a sign that makes you look twice, send it our way. Email next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. Kim Curry writes in to say thanks for straightening out the Cary Kennedy question about that attack ad that's being run by her supporters. Kim says she's getting bad legal advice. I don't doubt that, but that's a tough thing because you've got candidates out in front of messages and campaigns, and whether the error originates with them or a campaign aide or a legal advisor, it's still the candidate making the false claim. Speaking of things that aren't quite right, our thanks to Spring, who points out that in the first story in our broadcast about the man who survived a pit bull attack as a child and now has a pit bull puppy, we referred to the puppy in the story as a service dog. That's incorrect. A support dog is an animal that has not been trained but still provides that emotional support. Thank you so much for catching that. Joanne and Mike said, y'all made us cry tonight. Thanks. Appreciate it. See you next time.